Herod the Great and the Roman opium trade, the numismatic evidence. This is one of the earliest coins of Herod the Great. It was minted in Samaria in 37 BC. There's a very large opium poppy on it. There's a winged caduceus, which is the staff of Hermes, the Roman god Mercury. And this is a symbol of trade. So you have the agricultural product on one side of the coin and a symbol of trade and commerce on the other. And this is not conjecture. This is an advertisement to the world that Herod is trading in opium. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the Greco-Roman drug paraphernalia on coins of the time. And the coin in the upper left-hand corner is actually a very ancient coin from the time of the father of Alexander the Great, a coin from Damascene. And you can see opium poppies on the reverse. You can see the bulb, you can see the nodal point, the roots, and you can see in the far right corner there's actually a knife, and that opium poppy has been sectioned in half. The pod has been emptied, and you can see the top half of it in the center where the seeds have been extracted. The coin to the upper right is actually a contemporary coin of Herod the Great. This is a coin that was minted in Athens, and you can see an opium poppy in a tripodal-like device. You can see the bulb, you can see the nodal point, the tendrils beneath it, but you can actually see that the poppy has been contained within a device for harvesting the seeds or any other components of the bulb for ingestion or processing of that for the pharmacological agents needed to induce a hallucinogenic state. And why was a hallucinogenic state important for the Romans? Because they would interpret nature, they would interpret the movements of animals, birds, specifically astronomical signs, and they would basically have to be high to do this. The oracles would all inhale certain, chemical agents to try and understand what was going on in nature. So now we'll look at Herodian drug paraphernalia on some of his coins, okay? This is another coin of Herod the Great, one of his earliest coins, again minted, 37 BC in Samaria. And you can see in this coin on the upper right, there's actually a helmet on the front, and the opium poppy in the back has been sectioned on this device. And you can see it's very similar to the coin that was minted in Athens at the same time. And you can see this opium poppy. This is a close-up of an opium poppy that's been sectioned on another coin. And you can even actually see some seeds coming out of it there if you actually look really closely. And some of the other coins you can see these seeds that have, coming out of this poppy that's been sectioned in half. And what I think this device is it's some type of crude device to try and harvest poppy seeds from poppies, because you can see from the photo on the bottom right, it's kind of messy, and these are the main components of the bulb that people would eat. The problem is that poppy seeds, when they're unwashed, are actually very high in the opioid content that is so important for people to get high from. Here's a coin from Gadara, and it's in the late 30 BCs, another contemporary coin of Herod the Great. And you remember from Gadara, that's where Jesus went, about 60 years later, and was kicking demons out of people for probably doing opium. But we see on this coin, you look up close and you see this cornucopia, you see grapes, and you see an opium poppy with the leaf still attached. And you can see the bulb where there's seeds that are going in, or other extracts, maybe latex from the bulb, into the cornucopia for some type of hallucinogenic libation. So to be fair, Herod wasn't the first, ruler of this area of the world to introduce opium cultivation. The Hasmonean dynasty actually had opium poppies and pomegranates on many of their coins, and they displayed them on the reverses of their coins in cornucopias. The close-up of the coin to the left is actually a Ptolemaic coin. I want to think from Ptolemy II, his wife, one of those rulers from ancient Egypt. And you can see an opium poppy, grapes, barley. You can see the constituents of, the ingredients for the potion inside these cornucopias. And you can see the bottom right is another cornucopia. And actually, the Nabateans had these imagery on their coins, and Herod the Great was part Nabatean, so that doesn't surprise me. But these were very common images through the Near East. It wasn't just confined to Israel. So Herod the Great dies in roughly 4 BC, and his son Archelaus takes the reign after him, okay? And what happens with Archelaus is that, his coins actually have these cornucopia, opium poppy, grape symbolism on them, but he also puts a ship on one. And there's some question here, is he actually advertising that he's upping the trade, via maritime routes with this imagery on his coins? We just don't know. But what's very, very interesting is that Herod Archelaus was removed from power by Augustus. And they report that it's because he killed 3,000 people in an uprising in Jerusalem. And, they wanted to get rid of Herod Archelaus because of his treachery toward the Jewish people. There may be a problem with this thinking because, after Herod Archelaus, we don't see opium symbolism on any of the Roman proculator coins, okay, or any of the Jewish coins, up until the time of Pontius Pilate. So, what was going on here was, where was opium possibly becoming a problem, with the Roman population? Did they just stop the importation from, the Near East? I mean, we just don't know. But opium symbolism drops off after Herod Archelaus. So Herod Antipas comes, online basically as the main Jewish ruler, even though he was a tetrarch and not a Jewish king. But his coins actually display date palm imagery on it. There is no opium imagery on his coins. These are 2 coins of Herod Antipas, and I kind of think he gets a little bit of a bad rap because he was actually fairly pious. He listened to John the Baptist, and he was very sad because he, had to, kill him because of the dance and this kind of stuff. But Herod Antipas did not have opium symbolism on his coins, and his coins actually fell in line with Jewish law to some extent. What's really interesting here is the coin to the far right is a coin from the time of 33 AD, just after Jesus was crucified. And you can see he puts the Star of Bethlehem above the place name of Tiberias where it was minted. And he even has a shofar, not a cornucopia, okay, announcing the date. The date is LAZ. That's the date that corresponds to the 33 AD. And you can see this shofar. It's not a cornucopia. There's metal banding around it, just like the shofar to the bottom left. And there's almost like a bugle type or horn device attached to the top of it. Very, very interesting. That's another story, though. But Pontius Pilate, well, he's another story, and you can see Roman technical innovation in some of his coins. What you see here on a coin of Pontius Pilate, you see these wilting barley leaves, almost like in a tripod device, just like the opium poppy we saw previously on the coins of Herod the Great, okay? But, there's obviously a drought. I don't believe there's other symbolism with those wilting barley leaves. I actually think there's a real drought, and we know from some of the geological records that this time in the Mediterranean was pretty hot, okay? And that would actually lend credence to possibly even growing opium poppies, as they're very resistant to drought, and they tend to do very well in semi-arid climates today, like Afghanistan, Mexico, Spain. But when you see this imagery, you have to ask, what's this image of this thing on the back of his coin? It almost looks like a ladle, but it's actually what I believe is an opium bong, okay? And you can see some of the close-ups to the photograph to the right. You see this kind of like horn-like image where there's actually 2 chambers. And, what would you use a 2-chambered kind of neti pot for? Well, you're humidifying something you smoke. And it's probably, opium. You can even see the base of this ladle type thing almost has like an opium type bulb and symbolism. And what's really interesting, there's a bird on it, okay? And it's a small bird, but if that's a bird, that's not a ladle. That's actually something bigger than a ladle. And what did the Romans do with birds? Well, they tried to they used divination of birds for the future. I mean, they looked at the way birds flew. They would get high on drugs. They would say, this bird's doing this or that. And their priests would actually try and say, what's going on in the future? And, Judea in the time of Pontius Pilate, I think, was a pretty tumultuous region. Pilate would probably be trying to use any means possible to try and figure out what's going on, what to do with a population that he's worried about rebellion. So the Roman religion played a lot in the mind of Pontius Pilate, and you can actually see that on his coins. Okay, let's get to Herod Agrippa the First, and we know him because he's in the Bible. And Herod Agrippa, was very good friends with Caligula. Okay, so Herod Antipas got kicked out by Caligula. He was exiled to, I think some area in Gaul, and subsequently died there. But Herod Agrippa the First was actually a very competent ruler. And you can see why, because, he's bringing back a lot of agricultural wealth to the region, okay? There's barley leaves on the back of his coin, but you got this umbrella-like thing, and people say it's like some kind of canopy. But if you look closely, this is actually a canopy where you have opium poppies hanging off of it. And this is one of the better coins that I could find. These coins are very common. You can find them. They're cheap. They're all over the internet, okay? They're the widow's mite. These were circulated in huge numbers among the population. But a lot of these poppies were actually placed on a canopy-like device where the seeds were actually harvested from them. By the time we get to the Great Jewish Revolt, we can actually see what this canopy-like device is. So in the photo of the upper left, you see this canopy-like device with these opium poppies hanging from them. You see these jars that are in the shape of an opium poppy collection receptacle with this kind of conical top on them. And you can see there's a nodal point on it. There's, ribs like an opium poppy where they may actually cut it and remove some of the latex, and, little handles on the side. You could go to the jar on the far upper right thing, and you can see where this lid has been placed, to harvest the poppy seeds into the jar. Okay, so now you know that this is a canopy, not a canopy that you'd use for shade, because actually in some of the coins, it's not even a real canopy. You just see lines there that are open. And these are opium poppy seeds, and you put them in a jar. So, during the Jewish Revolt, they were obviously advertising this product on a lot of their coins. The coin in the bottom left is actually a coin of Herod Agrippa II, okay? And you can see that he has some kind of clenched fist with opium poppy-like devices that he's offering as tribute, or, some type of, offering to, show that there's some tribute or trade with Rome. The bottom middle, coin is a Jewish shekel of the First Revolt, and you have pomegranate seeds on the reverse. But the obverse has a really interesting kind of chalice-like device with a beaded rim in the shape of an opium poppy. And the question is, is that a receptacle for opium seeds? Are these symbols of the Jewish parties, possibly, the pomegranates representing the Pharisees, or the poppy seeds representing the Sadducees? I mean, nobody knows, but the bottom right coin is really interesting for the graffiti that they put on it. You can see a Badal type symbol that has been carved into the coin, and the cup is broken. And that's a Jewish siege coin, the last year of the siege of Jerusalem. So somebody was carving real pagan imagery in that Jewish cup, almost indicating that, whatever was in that cup didn't work out well for them. Very, very interesting. So the second temple's just destroyed. Titus is mopping up in the area, and this is a coin from Gadara again. We remember that one coin where they were putting opium poppy seeds and grapes into cornucopias, but this is actually a coin from Gadara when it was completely under Roman control, and you can see Titus on the front. The back, really interesting symbol. I believe it's a sword star from Josephus. You can see it right there. There's stars around it. But you see the opium poppies in the cornucopia. And it's not just, it's 3 opium poppies. So Gadara is pretty happy. The Romans are back in control of the Roman opium trade. Last but not least, here's a coin of Vespasian. I think it's out of Antioch. And he's celebrating the restoration of the agricultural trade after the Great Jewish Revolt. You can see the clasped hands, they're shaking, and whether or not this is with, partisans in the area, or whether or not it's with the Parthians, or whether or not it's with other, tribes, Nabateans, whatever it is, there's a winged caduceus in the middle, there's barley leaves, there's opium poppies. I mean, it's a celebration of the restoration of agricultural trade with the Roman Empire. Okay, political implications. Herod the Great acquired much wealth by trading opioid products. It's all over his coins, okay? The big thing is, did this wealth finance his extravagant building projects, okay? You have, the port at Caesarea, you have, Herodian, Machaerus, you have Masada, you have the temple. I mean, did opioid wealth actually go into building all these projects? I mean, absolutely incredible. We just don't know. And how did the economic competition for this wealth influence the Judeo-Roman conflicts and rebellions? Nobody knows just yet. Okay, the big theological implications. Ancient Judaism interacted with God by his commandments and holy scriptures. Fear was tempered by reason and God's covenant. Greco-Roman paganism sought their God's will by observation of nature. Their fear had to be controlled with pharmacologic agents to discern the meaning of nature. But by the time of Jesus, there was a significant portion of Jewish society that was thoroughly Hellenized. So why is this important in Judeo-Christianity? Well, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil separated Adam and Eve from God because they wanted to be like gods. Well, maybe opioids separated men from Christ because they couldn't stand the pain of being their own God. Deep thoughts, worth thinking about a little bit more. Thanks for listening. God bless. Take care.